Hello there, you're watching the press preview, our first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. Over the next half hour, we'll be seeing what's making the headlines with Esther McVey and Richard Angel. So very good evening to both of you.
Evening.
Okay.
First though, let's take a look at what's on those front pages then. And the Times says the new FBI investigation into Hillary Clinton has stunned American voters and sent a shockwave through the US presidential election campaign. The Telegraph says Mrs. Clinton is once again at the centre of a criminal investigation and quotes Donald Trump as saying this is bigger than Watergate. The I newspaper also leads on the story, saying that the latest polling shows Donald Trump eating into Hillary Clinton's lead. And it's the same story for the Financial Times, which says the news of a new probe into the emails has delivered a fresh blow to Mrs. Clinton's campaign. That story also gets some space on the Mail's front page in that photo there, but its headline concerns mobile phone coverage in the UK. It says foreign visitors to this country can often get a better signal. We'll explain how later. The Daily Express says former Prime Minister Tony Blair provoked anger by urging EU supporters to mobilise and organise to stop Brexit. The Daily Star reports on the abuse received by pop star Lily Allen from a cab driver on the back of her visit to the jungle camp in Calais. The Mirror says a terror attack in Britain is almost certain because there are an estimated 550 potential strikes being planned. And The Guardian headlines the victory for Uber drivers and says it could have implications for hundreds of thousands of other people involved in the so-called gig economy. So let's chat through those newspaper front pages with the former Conservative MP Esther McVey and the director of the centre-left think tank Progress, Richard Angel. Welcome to both of you. So a lot of the front pages have taken up what's been a developing story just this evening, so they've been pretty quick with their reactions, haven't they, into the FBI's announcement that it's opening a new investigation into some new Clinton emails. There's the I's headline, Clinton rocked by new FBI probe. I mean, it couldn't be worse timing for her campaign.
No, it's the campaign that keeps giving, isn't it? It's like a roller coaster of a campaign. Just when Hillary thinks she's sort of surging ahead, getting the votes in, as everybody is continuing to vote across America, then this comes out, which sort of topples where she's going, and immediately Trump has seized upon this. His catchphrase of crooked Hillary and, you know, is coming forward, and the questioning what has gone on. She landed in Iowa to give a speech there. Possibly she'll look back and maybe she should have said something straight away.
She didn't refer to it at all.
She didn't refer to it at all. So again, that's probably a campaign strategy they've come out with. Don't say anything. What is it? How has it come about? What's happening is a bit vague, but fundamentally, FBI looking into what she's doing has to rock a campaign, and it would be the first time, should she be elected, that anybody's gone into the Oval Office with a pending FBI inquiry.
Well, that's right, because the chances are this won't be resolved before the election. We don't know. In fact, we do have very little detail, don't we? We understand that these new emails are as a result of a probe into Anthony Weiner's phone, or his emails at least. So
yeah, it's worth saying
there are a lot of questions.
It's not her emails, we think. It's between her chief of staff and her estranged husband, who's gone through this process of having to stand down from Congress and then stand for mayor and had to pull out of that race. And it's in that investigation that what it seems some conversations about her server and her emails has come up.
And they're trying to establish whether or not it was classified information.
And they're trying to do that. And it seems the FBI have been particularly vague in the way of doing it. I mean, it is worth remembering that they did say initially that there was kind of essentially nothing to see here when it came to Hillary Clinton's investigation, and they're probably doing their proper job going through it. Donald Trump would be saying there was a conspiracy if they weren't doing it going forward. But it seems the fundamentals are good for Hillary still. The race is good. The numbers in terms of...
You don't think this will change people's minds?
It will, clearly, because it puts her negatives up there, but also it takes Donald Trump to his most nasty place. So it's not just him using the crooked Hillary comments, but when his supporters shout, lock her up, that actually moves independents towards her, because that's quite an ugly sign from him as well, and I don't think that's going to help.
And I think what we've got here is two candidates who actually have both got very poor ratings.
Yeah,
You think 325 million in the States, is this the best two you could come up with? So neither of them have got such positive ratings. And I always thought this election would end up on events that happen very close to the election day rather than a surge or a desire to have them leading the United States. And I think where she, in a way, has been let down, 10 days left to go, and the vagueness of what the FBI has been written, you don't know what the scope of the investigation is.
And that's what her campaign is saying is, you must clarify this now, because you've put something out there.
But that can work either way.
Of course it could.
And really,
they must be quite confident, though, that there's not much in it if they're saying more detail will be better for her.
Or maybe they thought it was locked down too tight last time by them pushing it off to other people. It wasn't me, Hillary, saying it was other people. Now they're saying, do you know what? More has come up. We might need to open that up. But whatever it is, it's not going to work for her when we're discussing what does it actually mean.
Well, that's right.
And that's what it means to the
people.
And even
if it ends up being nothing, there is a risk that her final messages, she's in the last 11 days now, get drowned out by the talk about it, even if there isn't any detail and no conclusion.
And it will go to events. And as I said, it's not a real desire to vote for her. Interesting, when you saw Michelle Obama come out yesterday, everybody saying, oh, well, if she was standing, I'd definitely vote for her. A surge of, you know, we'd want to vote for this woman, and somewhat overshadowed her in a way. So, look, there's 10 days left. Lord knows what will come out next. I'm sure this isn't the end. I'm sure something else will come out. I'm sure something could come out.
It's certainly not a boring election, isn't it?
It's not a boring election,
and we've got President Obama coming out later this evening. In fact, he's late, I think, to hold the rally. So it'll be interesting to see.
They'll all be coming out, won't they? They'll all be coming out.
Let's see what gets said there. Let's move on to the front of The Guardian, because they do have a picture of Hillary Clinton with the suggestion that she'll need another hug now, they say there. But their main story is this decision that was made today over the Uber drivers who were questioning how they were treated and their employment rights.
Well, this is an amazing development. The GMB trade union have won this historic case. We've got a kind of gig and modern economy coming, where people often now attain work through apps and other things, and it's been shown that through Uber they clearly are employees, and so 30,000 people potentially could get maternity rights, paternity rights, holiday pay, the right to a minimum wage and all that kind of stuff. So really positive on the surface. It's clearly different with Uber, where they all do through one app, one task, than say TaskRabbit, where you might have who do different kind of activities. They're actually making a real example of Uber, and the judgment is really interesting, and not least it's quite elaborate. It quotes Hamlet and other things, which is a quite interesting judgment.
That's right, and quite damning of Uber. Uber do say they'll appeal, but if this ruling were to stand at the end of the entire legal process, there could be a real knock-on, couldn't there, for a number of companies?
But I think this is, you know, a very positive court case, and as a previous employment minister, you would always be sorting out what actually was somebody's status. Were they a worker? Were they an employee? Were they self-employed? And in the past, what you found, whether it was the media industry or other industries, people were saying they were self-employed, not having to sort of pay PAYE, and actually you found out they'd been on long-term contracts, and people say, actually, you're not self-employed, because people wanted the tax benefits in that they didn't have to declare until the end of the year. They could take off their expenses. This case is looking at it from the other direction. What are the employer's rights, and should they be a worker, or should they be somebody who is employed? And I totally agree with that. If somebody's status is that they are an employee, they should be given those benefits. That's quite right. And it has implications to, you know, to government too, because if the employee isn't paying for these pension rights, if they're not paying for their sickness rights, if they're not paying for those benefits, it falls upon the government and taxpayers to pick up that. So actually the company getting those benefits should be paying it.
There are going to be some Uber drivers that say they actually like the flexibility of being classified as self-employed. And would you say that it's true that everybody is racing to catch up with technology? There are new forms of working, and the rules need to be adjusted to cater for all those developments.
I think that's always the case, and that's why we're forever doing laws, and that's why, you know, MPs are there and governments are there. But this status has always come into question. You're always having court cases, and this one, you're quite right, is catching up with that. But if you look, and you can go on the government website, what is the definition of an employee? What is the definition of self-employed? And it has quite a few, quite easily, just by reading it yourself. You wouldn't have to be an employment lawyer, you wouldn't have to be represented to find out actually it does fit in, or at least there are murky waters there. And, you know, it is about protecting workers, that's only right.
OK, let's move on to the front of the Daily Mail. Again, Hillary's picture is there on the front page with their main story. They call it a scam, but they're basically revealing that this is an MP's report about the bad signal that lots of people suffer around the country. I'm sure there'll be lots of people watching that would agree.
Yes.
This is a real victory.
Are you one of them?
This is a real victory for backbench MPs in a way. It's not a formal select committee. I think it's an all-party group that have come together, found 500 of these kind of hotspots where the signal is not so hot. And actually,
it's a not spot.
It's a not
rather than a
spot,
hot
exactly.
Spot, yeah.
And that actually you might be better served by having a foreign provider of your mobile phone than you would be having a domestic one. So a great win for consumers in this one, bringing this front and centre. And of course, we need this access for the kind of jobs and if you're driving an Uber, you'll be using 4G. A black spot could be
What a great win for consumer if things change. I mean,
if they change, yeah.
Is there likely to be a change, do you think, just because this is highlighted?
Look, this is something they've been wanting to drive through for a long period of time. This notion of connectivity, this ability to work from home, be flexible, not necessarily working for Uber, whoever, but just having your own company from home or home working, flexible hours, whatever it is, mumpreneurs. Of course you need that, and to have such a poor service is wrong. It is about driving it through. I have to say, several years back, 10 years back, MPs were saying we do not want phone masts in these areas, petitioning against it because of the beauty, because of the health reasons, and that's probably some of the reasons that we have not spots, because some areas did not want those phone masts. Now the argument has moved on.
OK. Did you say mumpreneurs?
Mumpreneurs. Mums
on
at home, working, using the internet.
It works. I kind of guessed what it was. That's very good. OK, we're going to take a bit of a break now. Lots to come, including why Apple products could soon be even more expensive. We'll be right back.